Inc., the business of Shaquille O'Neal. And so I just recently interviewed him, and I actually asked him about Caitlin Clark, and he had an interesting take on it, which he said the tension in the league right now is not racially motivated tension, it's not political tension, it's a rite of passage that she is going to be the face of the league, but the existing veteran players are not going to let her until she basically goes through this on the court hazing ritual. And
it turned a heated WNBA moment into a much bigger controversy. Shaquille O'Neal even weighed in, while Caitlin Clark somehow found herself at the center of the conversation. But here's where things get really interesting. Was this simply an intense basketball play, or did the officials make a decision that completely changed the narrative? Fans immediately started debating the call, replaying the moment, and asking whether the same standard was being applied to everyone. And once you see what happened next, you'll understand exactly why this moment exploded into a major WNBA controversy.
Take a walk with me, take a walk with me, take a walk with me. There is craziness going on in the WNBA. DJ Carrington tweeted out white privilege from the locker room of a game that she was playing in. Get this, she fouls Sophie Cunningham hard. Sophie Cunningham, obviously a white person, fouls her hard. Flagrant 2, gets ejected, goes to the locker room and tweets out white privilege in the middle of the game. Now here's the kicker to me. A flagrant 2 has to be contact that can lead to an injury that looks excessive. DJ, it was about as excessive as possible. If there was any evidence of there being white privilege, this was not it. What the hell do y'all think?
The game had already turned physical, but then DJ Carrington...
The game was already getting physical, but then DJ Carrington took the intensity to another level. Sophie Cunningham was moving through the play when Carrington collided with her, and the impact instantly caught everyone's attention. The arena reacted immediately, and within moments fans were debating exactly what had happened, and whether the contact went too far. What looked like one heated basketball moment quickly became the center of a much bigger conversation.
Go walking in for a layup, and so I don't oppose the hard foul, but I also don't think that she intentionally went for the net.
Stephanie White, we shouldn't be surprised. This is somebody who has come out and admitted publicly that she's uneducated on the difference between male and female. She's uneducated on. So are we really surprised that this is Stephanie White's thought process here? I've been saying Stephanie needs to be fired for over a year. The reason she never defends Caitlin is because she agrees with the rough play. In fact, she taught Dejanay and AT how to play this way. To
many viewers watching the replay, it looked far more serious than an ordinary basketball play, with the contact around Cunningham's upper body making the moment especially jarring. And somehow the hit itself was only the beginning. While fans waited to see whether Cunningham's team would immediately rally around her, another part of the story started raising eyebrows.
Crew felt that Caitlin put a little extra sauce on the forearm when she ran into that official. Did the league get this right, rescinding the technical foul?
Can we see it again? Team crew in the control room, can I see it again? Because you all watched this in real time.
Yeah.
You all watched this happen in real time. I was surprised that a technical foul was called.
Ended it because for that action being minimal, like a brush, this is what should have happened and the right thing happened. What? Like, what is
all I'm saying is I have flashbacks to college when my teammate bumped into a coach like this and it was a problem.
Where your teammate did what?
Bumped into one of our coaches this way and it was a problem. But I think when we analyze it, if Caitlin didn't say anything, it is marginal. I think rescinding it was fine. But I do understand in the moment how we got here.
Well, Stephanie White didn't exactly storm onto the court in the dramatic show of support some people might have expected. Suddenly, the conversation shifted from what happened between the players to how the team handled the situation afterwards.
Sophie Cunningham was going to be the next target. I've been telling you guys for weeks, Sophie would take the role of Caitlin Clark as public enemy number 1 in the WNBA dump. And yesterday was the first attack. You know, I wasn't able to predict this because I'm some brilliant scholar or philosopher. This prediction was not delivered to me in a dream or a vision that came from the dearly departed Miss Cleve.
But Carrington's reaction made the situation even more fascinating. Instead of appearing to view the play as an obvious flagrant foul, Carrington seemed to have a very different interpretation of the incident. Her comments afterward only added fuel to the fire, as some fans questioned whether she genuinely believed the contact was simply part of normal basketball, and that's where the story gets interesting. The controversy quickly moved beyond one foul, with fans debating intent, accountability, officiating, and whether certain players are treated differently when the intensity of a WNBA game reaches its peak. If Carrington was ejected, everything escalated from that point. Cunningham had already taken the brunt of the contact and hit the floor hard, then got back up and moved toward Carrington before teammates and Fever security stepped in to separate them. Carrington eventually headed toward the tunnel as the crowd reaction only intensified the moment.
They didn't make this play successfully, right? Trying to get a block over the top. It was a very hard foul. DiJonai has made this play successfully so many times throughout her career. No matter what team she has played on, we have seen DiJonai make transition blocks.
Right.
So to me, I understand it was called a flagrant 2. I wouldn't have been mad if it was called a flagrant 1 because I do think she was making a basketball play.
But the most explosive part of the night didn't happen in the arena at all. It happened online. Only minutes after the ejection, Carrington posted the words "white privilege" and tagged the Indiana Fever. The post reportedly came roughly 8 minutes after the foul, while the game was still ongoing. Suddenly, the conversation changed because it wasn't just about a hard foul anymore. It was about intent, interpretation, and everything surrounding the incident. Several people publicly defended Sophie Cunningham, arguing that the contact wasn't unusual for a competitive game, but that the reaction and escalation felt disproportionate. Others defended Carrington, saying physical defense is part of basketball and emotional reactions after ejections are nothing new. But one of the biggest themes was officiating. Players and fans questioned whether the standard was consistent, pointing out that similar plays can be judged very differently depending on the game and context. That inconsistency, they argued, is what creates frustration and eventually leads to controversies like this one.
DiJonai Carrington's foul was upgraded to a flagrant 2 on Sophie Cunningham. She was ultimately ejected from the game against the Indiana Fever. Then she takes to the locker room, and the first thing she does is run to Twitter and say, "White privilege." Where's the white privilege in this? I'm watching the game, Sophie Cunningham going on a fast break, and again, DiJonai Carrington, you're not going for the ball. You literally went straight for her cranium. So I don't know why you sitting here screaming white privilege after that. Don't deflect from the malicious, the blatant, and overly aggressive foul that you just created. That again, if the WNBA does not suspend you for multiple games, some
NBA veterans even went further, saying players like Cunningham and Carrington can find themselves in impossible situations where physical defense is encouraged until it suddenly becomes punishable, sometimes without a clear explanation. That sentiment spread quickly among players and fans who have watched the WNBA grow in visibility over the last 2 seasons. Then the conversation took another turn as older controversies resurfaced online. One talking point involved Caitlin Clark, and a past suspension that fans referenced while discussing broader concerns about officiating and player discipline. Critics argue that certain lines should never be crossed, while others believe context should always be considered. With the Cunningham-Carrington incident unfolding, those earlier debates came rushing back. Players and fans who had already questioned officiating began connecting the issues, creating a larger conversation about consistency and fairness. Sophie Cunningham supporters argue that she was playing aggressive basketball and ended up caught in a moment that escalated beyond control, while Carrington supporters argue that she reacted emotionally to a physical play and a tense environment, with her post reflecting frustration rather than an attempt to escalate the situation.
The reason I saw this coming is because I have been seeing this same thing in this toxic turd of a league for years. As I am watching the reactions on social media yesterday of DiJonai Carrington assaulting Sophie Cunningham, and that's what this was, assault. This was not incidental contact in the rhythm of a basketball game, mainly because the WNBA is not a basketball league. What you saw yesterday, that was intentional assault. And like I said,
but NBA voices stepping into the conversation changed the tone again, because when players who have spent years dealing with playoff-level physicality start saying something doesn't look consistent, people listen differently. Some specifically pointed out that the WNBA is in a transition period, where increased popularity, especially around stars like Caitlin Clark, has amplified every decision made by officials. That spotlight, they argue, is exposing flaws that may have always existed but were never scrutinized at this level. And that's where the outrage is coming from. Now not just from one fan base or one team, but from a growing group of players, analysts, and former professionals. Cunningham's involvement ties it all together because she sits at the center of the latest flashpoint. What makes the next chapter even more important is that the league now has to deal with a controversy that has already moved beyond the court. The officials made their ruling during the game, but once social media entered the picture, the WNBA was no longer dealing with a simple officiating decision. It was dealing with competing interpretations of intent, fairness, identity, and accountability, all of which become much harder to control once millions of fans have chosen their side.
The Indiana Fever games, I don't know if I love them or I hate them at times. It's like if you like anything about reality TV, then the WNBA is, and sports, then the WNBA is for you. Sometimes it gets to be way too much. And this season, I gotta say, I've gotten to that place multiple times. But this game, like, I mean, love it or hate it, you can't say that you could have taken your eyes off of it for any second. The Indiana Fever came in against the Chicago Sky, playing on their home turf. And listen, the Chicago Sky have been a very bad team, but have also taken teams to the wire, like the Minnesota Lynx, nearly beating them very recently.
That is where the league faces its biggest challenge. Consistency cannot simply mean making the same call after something goes wrong. It means establishing a standard that players, coaches, and fans can understand before the next controversial play happens. If a certain type of contact is going to result in an ejection, players need to know why. And if similar contact in another game produces a different result, the league needs to explain that difference clearly instead of leaving everyone to fill in the blanks. The timing also matters because the WNBA is operating in an era where almost every major officiating decision can become a national debate before players have even reached the locker room. That is precisely why the league cannot afford to treat controversies like this as isolated incidents that simply disappear when the next game begins. If players and fans believe there is a pattern of inconsistent enforcement, every future decision will be judged against that perception. A referee could make the correct call and still face criticism because the audience remembers a different decision from weeks or years earlier. In that environment, trust becomes much harder to rebuild than it is to lose.
Speaking of the WNBA, there's a video of Shaq going around talking about the WNBA. He goes,
I have a way to make it equal.
The WNBA, they have all the pieces to have a really good league. They have shooters, they have ball handlers, they have finesse. There's no.
We just lower the rim so y'all can like
we put butts in the seat.
No.
I don't think that's the problem. That's what Shaq said.
He's thinking basketball. He's not thinking why people want to watch shit.
Yeah.
You're a jiu-jitsu guy, right?
Yeah.
The good thing is women's jiu-jitsu, it's actually popping, but like let's say it wasn't. From a jiu-jitsu lens, you'd probably be like, oh yeah, if there's more arm breaks, people are going to watch it more.
The situation also exposes the complicated relationship between competitive intensity and responsibility. Players are expected to defend aggressively, protect their teammates, challenge shots, and compete for every possession, but they also have to recognize when physicality crosses the line. That balance has always existed in basketball, but the enormous attention surrounding the modern WNBA means every controversial decision now receives far more scrutiny than it once did. That scrutiny isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can actually push leagues to become more transparent and consistent. The problem begins when the conversation stops being about what happened and becomes entirely about what people believe happened. Once that happens, facts can become secondary to narratives, and every new replay becomes another piece of evidence in an ongoing debate. Fans know this too. A routine defensive play that might normally receive only a few seconds of attention can suddenly become a major talking point when the same players are involved. That doesn't mean players should stop competing aggressively, because that would defeat the purpose of professional basketball. It means the league has to make sure the rules are applied clearly enough that intense competition doesn't become overshadowed by suspicion.
I mean, I can't even say again because Caitlin finally pulled some rank around here, right? Caitlin, I wouldn't even say Caitlin Clark really pulled rank. I feel like her influence and her power alone dictated this action without her even having to lift a finger. I mean, getting suspended for literally being pushed into a referee might be the worst technical foul I've ever seen. And it's up there with Tim Duncan's technical foul. It's up there with it. But anyways, Caitlin Clark's technical foul, her 8th technical foul, which would have suspended her, which would have disqualified her from playing against the New York Liberty in Indiana on ESPN. Her 8th technical foul.
There is also a lesson here for the players themselves. Social media gives unprecedented ability to speak directly to their audiences, but that power comes with consequences because anything posted during an emotionally charged moment can become part of the controversy itself. A reaction that feels temporary to the person writing it can remain online long after the emotions of the game have disappeared. That is why the aftermath can sometimes become more damaging than the original incident. The whistle ends the play, but the internet keeps the play alive. Officials can review the footage, make a decision, and move on, while fans continue replaying the moment from different angles and debating what they believe it proves. At that point, the league is no longer controlling the conversation because the conversation has taken on a life of its own. For the WNBA, controversies can remain part of the competitive drama without becoming permanent credibility crises. Ultimately, the issue isn't whether professional basketball should be physical. It absolutely should be. The real issue is whether everyone involved understands where competitive physicality ends and unacceptable contact begins.
Either way, DiJonai Carrington came in and did not make the game boring at all. She hard fouls Sophie Cunningham in transition. Absolutely a flagrant 2. Just look at the way that Sophie Cunningham goes down. Dangerous, reckless, not okay. And what makes matters worse is DiJonai Carrington goes to Threads and she posts white privilege, tagging the Indiana Fever. Now, I gotta say, this is something I just can't get down with anymore. Like, the whole divisiveness of an issue that has nothing to do with white privilege.
And that distinction matters even more when the players involved already carry enormous public attention. Caitlin Clark's presence has dramatically increased scrutiny around the Fever, while players like DiJonai Carrington and Sophie Cunningham have become recognizable figures in their own right. Every confrontation involving highly visible players therefore has the potential to become much bigger than the possession itself. That's why this controversy may not be remembered simply as a flagrant foul in an Indiana victory. It could become another moment that raises questions about how the league handles physical play when the cameras are everywhere, fan bases are divided, and social media is waiting for the next controversial clip. The next chapter won't be determined by what happened during this game alone. It will be determined by what the league, the players, and the fans do with what happened afterward. And when these teams meet again, everyone will be watching for more than the final score. They'll be watching to see whether the controversy changed anything, whether the intensity remains competitive without becoming personal, and whether the league can convince everyone that the same standard applies regardless of who is standing in front of the officials. That's the real test ahead, because one controversial game can create headlines, but only consistent decisions can prevent those headlines from becoming a pattern.